Wink Martindale has a wandering eye, it so appears. Not going to necessarily be a good scenario for Michigan if he does end up going elsewhere, but he's had a couple interviews, I believe, at this point. Certainly has completed one. Was supposed to do another one today, Wednesday. And if that is the case, what does that mean for Michigan? What does his wandering eye look? Well, what does it mean? I'm just going to keep saying, what does it mean? Anyway, we'll talk about it on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. We did not do a Tuesday show. Actually, I did do a Tuesday show. It just didn't get published because it was not a good version of a Tuesday show. I'll explain why in segment 3. But anyway, let's talk about Wink Martindale. As much as I want to look up the stats and everything, I'm going to have to try to do something else. Every time I want to talk about stats, but every time I try to do something, there's something wrong with CFB stats. It just crashes my Windows every single time. So I guess to the NCAA, maybe that's where we're going to go. All right. So Michigan ended up finishing 11th in the country with in total defense, which is kind of amazing. Well, that even closed. That closed all of my windows. Something's wrong with my computer. I can't seem to keep Windows open whatsoever. Really annoying. All right, we're gonna close that out then. It's another reason why we didn't do the show. It was a lot of me opening and closing windows. If Michigan does end up losing Wink Martindale, it would be a huge blow due to the fact that you've kind of exhausted a lot of your options, not necessarily all. Danton Lynn's out there with USC at the moment. Certainly there's other acolytes of his that you could find. I think that you maybe you'll be a little bit more likely to promote Lamar Morgan, who was Jesse Minter's pick to be his heir apparent. I think if I remember correctly, something like that. But I'm not saying Wink is leaving, but I will say this about it. When you are entertaining one NFL deal, then that's obviously going to be a scenario where you say, okay, well, the Atlanta Falcons are interested. So what does that mean? That means something. But that might not be, Wink might not want the Falcons overall, and the Falcons might not want Wink overall. But when you have the Falcons and the Colts, and then supposedly the Bengals have an interest, then it starts being like, okay, not great. Now, here's the thing. I'd say about 2 months ago, no one really would have figured that we would be sitting here talking about this, because what Wink had done in Ann Arbor to that point had not been great. He'd win first and second down, but third down, you'd be 3rd and 25, and you just kind of knew that the other team was going to find a way to complete that, right? So it was just kind of a debacle in that light. So the fact that they were able to, he was able to kind of figure things out and hold Ohio State to 10 points, which looks absolutely incredible right this second, and hold Alabama to 13 points, also incredible. I would love to sit and do my normal thing where I'm going through and saying, like, the last time that any team had held Ohio State to 10 points and last time any team had held Alabama to 13 points, but unfortunately, doesn't look like that's possible. We can try it in Safari instead of Chrome, since Chrome likes to crash. But it just makes things that much more incredible. Let's see, college football stats. What can we do without pulling up CFB stats? Actually, here we go. Let's do it this way. All right. Sorry for the moments of silence. So they held Ohio State to 10 points. Obviously, no other team had, and that crashed still. I can't seem to keep Windows open. That crashed still. The closest to it was Penn State, which held them to 20. Alabama, I could look it up. Obviously, we're just on the struggle bus here with the browsers and the computer and all of that. Masterful ability and just understanding of what he needed to change, and everyone getting on the same page. Everyone finally understanding. So that's why you really can't afford to lose him at this point. You need 3 years of Wink if you can. He was always going to be a rental. We've said that from the beginning. He was a rental. I didn't think he would be a 1-year rental, and he still might not be. And I'd seen some stuff in the last 24 hours that I hadn't seen before. I think this was via On3, where Wink had said that he wanted to end his career in Ann Arbor, but he's going to listen if someone backs a Brinks truck up to his door. Well, if I'm Michigan, because you understand that, like, you have to make this work. You have to have the consistency on defense. I would say for at least 1 more year, if not 2 more. And why do I say that? Well, because this year, Michigan, I look at what the schedule is. To me, right now on paper, Nebraska and Ohio State are the 2 hardest games. Oklahoma could be right there. They've been all in the transfer portal. If you get past Oklahoma, then congratulations. 2 weeks later, you get Nebraska. And if you get past Nebraska, it's kind of smooth sailing to Ohio State. And Ohio State is going to be well overrated in my eyes, because they're going to be in the same situation Michigan was just in, maybe even worse with the amount of people that they're going to lose. Maybe not as bad, because they probably aren't going to be undergoing a coaching change. But certainly it's going to be a lot of departures. Like everyone on defense except for Caleb Downs and probably Davis and Igbignosin, and pretty much everyone on offense. This is, again, I'm spitballing, so Ohio State people, don't come after me. I'm spitballing knowing just the generals of your roster. But you're going to lose a lot of players in Columbus after this national championship run. So they are going to be difficult still, because they still recruit at an extremely high level. But at the same time, it's kind of an unknown commodity at the moment, is all I'm trying to say there. So you get through that, and that's fine. But it's more about looking forward to 2 years from now. Sophomore Bryce Underwood. Because we don't really know what Bryce Underwood's going to be this year, right? Like he's certainly going to get some run, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he is going to be like the world killer that we expect him to be. Sophomore year, junior year, might be a different scenario. Junior year, you can get away with a defensive transition. But sophomore year, you also want to be able to maintain the same defense, the same system, as long as it's still working, because you're still going to need to help out the offense a little bit. Certainly this next year, you need it, because the defense is going to really need to help out the offense. And you want to be able to have that consistency and not go wandering through the desert like Michigan did for most of this past year. Because you look at what the players were able to do late, you kind of look at some of those games like Oregon or Texas that got off to fast starts, and then you start to sit there and think, man, maybe they could have won those games later in the year once the team kind of started to gel from a defensive standpoint. Let's continue talking about the potential repercussions of Wink Martindale and all of that. We're going to do that here in just a moment. But before we do, after the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space helps me get back into a routine. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the year, Wayfair has everything you need, all within your budget. I'm currently looking for furniture, and their huge selection makes it easy to find pieces that fit my style and budget. My favorite part, the free and hassle-free delivery, even for the larger items. Wayfair's site is so easy to navigate. I found everything I needed in no time. Something for every style and every home, no matter your space and budget. I can attest I have used Wayfair many a time I like a lot of interior design stuff. I know it's probably not the manliest thing to say, but you want to feel comfortable in your space. So give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. I was going to wait till segment 3 to get to this. We'll just say it now. Why did we not do a show yesterday? Well, The reason I don't like even saying this, I like to tell you what's happening, but I'm sick again, and like full blown flu sick. Now I had pneumonia for a month plus, which came with laryngitis in October, and now I have the flu, and I started feeling it after. It turns out being at my uncle's memorial and just all of the things afterwards. I got home, I felt fine. I felt fine most of the next day, and Monday night, I started not feeling well. I go on Facebook and find out my whole family is sick. And I was like, oh, thanks, guys. So that's why. But this particularly does not have me thinking in linear forms, in straight lines. Every single thing I seem to say. Like I said, I recorded like half a show yesterday. And it was such garbage, I stopped and said, we're done. I just can't do a show today. Because it was incomprehensible. And I started to try again, and I'm like, I can't talk today. I just can't do it. So we are back today, still somewhat incomprehensible, but better than we were before. And we'll power through as long as I can form complete sentences and coherent thoughts. I think with my browser just deciding that it was going to shut down every 2 seconds, which we use as an aid, that made it that much more difficult. All right. So do I think Wink will end up moving on? I think it's a little too early to say. But like I mentioned, in segment 1, he supposedly had said that if someone brings truck up, back up, he's going to listen. So if all things are even, I don't know if he'll leave, right? Like right now, he's the highest paid defensive coordinator in college football, and he's making something like $2.5 million. He'd only have to pay back, I think, $350,000 if he was to leave now. So that's a little bit more amenable to what it was like a month ago when he would have had to pay $1 million. I think that buyout structure is kind of weird. I understand kind of why you do it. You just want to try to lure him in. But if I'm Michigan, here's what I do. I look at Wink and say $1 million to shut it down right now. Now, Doug Peterson. Wait, is it Doug? No, not Doug Peterson. I'm thinking the Eagles, but he's not even there anymore. Vic Fangio, I believe, is the highest paid defensive coordinator in the NFL at $4.5 million. I don't know if Wink would command that right now because he's been out of the NFL for 1 year and it didn't go great with the Giants, which probably not exactly his fault. But nonetheless, I think people will look at what he did at Michigan and they might match what Michigan's doing. But if I'm Michigan, I'm saying, listen, bro, we want to keep you. What's $1 million between friends? Stay home. This is your new home. I think it would be worth it. Now, obviously, I don't have $1 million, but I'm just going to casually spend other people's money for them and say, like, hey, if you're going to, Larry Ellison, if you were going to spend on Bryce Underwood, why don't you just sweeten the deal a little bit with Wink Underwood? I mean, maybe you want to go to a different beehive there for honey rather than trying to get all of the honey from one hive. But I think that would be a worthwhile endeavor if you're Michigan. Find a way to keep Wink Martindale for at least 1 more year, if not 2, because like I spelled out, you look at what this upcoming season is. I would look at the schedule, but again, it just does not seem like it's working out that well. Let's try it. Let's do it anyway. And then if I have to pull things back up, then we'll do that. All right. And I'm doing it on my regular monitor. Nope. See, still didn't like it. I apparently just cannot surf the web on my main computer anymore. It's very frustrating. Okay. Let's see here. Can I switch? Can I do anything? No. You're just going to have to deal with me going through the paces of computer just not working correctly. I don't know what that is. Why suddenly I just can't use the internet? You just can't use the internet at all, except for a couple things that I need to do ad reads and such. All right, so I can't look at the schedule. That's fun. But nonetheless, like I said, Nebraska week 4. You got Oklahoma 2 years in a row. Let's do it this way. Okay, I know again, dead air. It is what it is. 2026. Let's look more at 2026 first. This is more the shot, even though the schedule is still kind of difficult. You host Oklahoma in week 2. Who knows what Indiana is going to be? Again, we don't know the Big Ten dates. Iowa, if that one, again, it says Iowa. I don't know if it's home or away. None of these say whether they're, okay, no, it is home. Iowa at home, Michigan State at home, Penn State at home, at Oregon, at Ohio State. That's more so why you need to be able to have Wink Martindale that year. Now, you can get away with it a little bit with if Bryce Underwood, and you got receivers, still have a good offensive line. But by that point, this is 2 years from now. Who knows if Justice Haynes is a 1 or 2 year deal for Michigan? Running backs tend to be more 4-year guys, tend to be, but not always. But that's a harder schedule, right? Because you got a couple games at home that, what is Oklahoma at that point in 2 years? Penn State and Iowa at home, that's difficult. At Oregon, at Ohio State, that's brutal. So you need to try to keep him for 2 more years. This next year, it's a lot of road games at USC, at Nebraska. You host Ohio State, but that feels a little bit more manageable than some of the alternatives. So the schedule certainly is more amenable. You avoid a lot of the big dogs this upcoming season, but you still need to try to keep him for this season, because if you make another coordinator change, you're going to have to go through some of the same growing pains you've seen, kind of year over year. Jesse Minter didn't really have the growing pains, and heck, Mike McDonald didn't have that much, but it's still, you kind of think back and it's like, okay, they didn't really seem to have the growing pains, but they still fell apart in the second half against Nebraska, right? Like an offensively challenged Wisconsin still kind of kept them at bay, and it was a tough game, but I think that Jesse Minter 2023, that would have been a lot prettier. So you need to be able to live with your bread and butter, which is defense. And the best capability of doing that is by being able to keep the architect, the OG. So if I'm Michigan, I'm throwing him some money and saying, like, all right, we don't want you going anywhere. We're going to do everything in our power to keep you from going anywhere. So what happens if he does go somewhere? Let's talk about that. We'll do that here in just a moment. But before we do, did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That's definitely happened to me. Had a few subscriptions I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find your and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Brings everything together all in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, you're able to automatically set aside money for your future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, we're struggle busting through this whole episode. We don't, I can barely speak, not in the same way as before. I can vocally speak. I can't keep a line of thought going. And my browser likes to shut down, which we use for a lot of different things, just about every show. So it's struggle busing. That's where we're at, but we're going to make it through. So what happens? We kind of touched on it earlier. What happens if Wink Martindale does move on? Well, the first thing obviously is you're going to want to see, can you find a Wink Martindale acolyte to continue things moving forward? Now, like I said earlier, that could be Lamar Morgan, who's learned from Jesse Minter while at Vanderbilt, and for 1 year, and he was for 1 year with Wink Martindale himself. But you'd love to keep him in the secondary, considering how much better they got over the course of the year. He's been excellent, so you'd hate to lose that. But I guess if push comes to shove, that would be a move that you could look at and say, all right, that might work. It's hard to gauge his tenure as a defensive coordinator at Louisiana because they tend to play a harder schedule in terms of being a group of 5 team. So they're going to load up on Power 4 teams often. I mean, obviously they got their conference games, but it's not the same type of game, of course. So that would be probably one of the places I'd go. Deanton Lynn from USC didn't necessarily go great for him, right? Went great at UCLA, at USC, different deal. But does USC have the defensive players to be able to do what he wanted to do? That's kind of the big question. Comes in, thinks he's got Bear Alexander. Bear Alexander shuts things down, injuries, and then just decides to shut things down as it is. Makes it a little bit more difficult, right? So that would probably be the other place. And certainly they could pry a Deanton Lynn financially away, I would imagine, from USC. Like, here's the thing, you set the bar by paying Wink Martindale, making him the highest paid defensive coordinator. You're going to have to continue to set that bar one way or the other. Probably. Now, it is different, obviously, if you go with Lamar Morgan, because that's a promotion. Hey, you're the defensive coordinator at Michigan. You're already on staff. I doubt Lamar Morgan is necessarily going to be, well, okay, I demand 2.5. But for an established coordinator elsewhere, you certainly can find a way. Now, here's the thing. Outside of Jim Knowles, right now, I don't know who else is having like the type of success, right? Like it was a little bit easier, I think, in 2015, coming from 2015 to 2016, identifying Don Brown and saying like he's the guy. I had my eye on Don Brown before the season was even out in 2015 because it was like, what is this dude doing at Boston College? I was always looking at it because you're looking at the stats and trying to see where is Michigan in terms of total defense. How is Boston College ahead of Michigan? ACC team plays a tough schedule at that time. There was called Florida State and the other one, Clemson. Why couldn't I remember that? Right. Like they come at a premium at times, right? You can see that with Clemson poaching Tom Allen away for, again, a premium. So it's sometimes difficult to get a really good defensive coordinator. Now, the problem is if you're Michigan and you consistently have a really good defense, you're going to end up playing a little bit of coaching roulette. Now, you feel like Sharon Moore is probably set in stone, right? Like he's probably not going anywhere. Michigan's the destination. As long as they're winning consistently, chances are he's not going to jump for another college job or an NFL job. So at least the top is good. Coordinators, you're generally going to have to worry about that. Not everyone can be Clemson with Brett Venables. They managed to hold on to him for 10 years. It was insane. Like he was there forever. Usually you look at a team having success on one side of the ball the way Clemson did. You expect that guy to become a head coach sooner rather than later. It took him a little bit longer in order to do that. So I think that you're going to find yourself in this position relatively often at Michigan. Same thing will be the case for Chip Lindsey. Chip Lindsey turns around the Michigan offense. Let's say it looks like Georgia going from 2021 to 2022. It's not going to take long for people to say oh yeah, we want to hire this Chip Lindsey. It's going to be other schools, whether it's for their head coaching job. It's going to be certainly with Bryce Underwood leading the charge and what he's going to end up looking like. We all imagine that's going to certainly make a lot of people in the NFL even say okay, wow, okay, that's what we want. So you're going to be in danger of this all the time. So you're going to have to find ways to sweeten the pot to keep your guys around as long as you can. It's not going to be perfect. Every school loses their coordinators. Not maybe as much as Michigan's lost its defensive coordinator over the last several years, or even offensive. That's the other part of it. We talk about how they went from Don Brown in 2020 to Mike McDonald in 2021, Jesse Minter for the next 2 years to Wink Martindale, and maybe to another. Well, they had Josh Gaddis 2020 and 21, went to Sharon Moore and Matt Weiss in 2022, Sharon Moore in 2023, and Kirk Campbell in 2024, on to another. So you'd like to find a way to be a little bit more consistent than that. Have two coordinate, maybe not switch them over both at the same time, but have them for 3 or 4 years each. That's what you need to do. You need to find a way to have that consistency. And then hopefully you raise up heirs apparent underneath them so that you sit there and say, all right, if that guy moves on, we're going to just elevate this guy because we have our system. With that in mind, how is Phil Parker over at Iowa managed to stay at Iowa for so long? How's no one has called for him? Seems interesting. Anyway, that's going to do it for us today. Got through the haphazard show. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. We will be back on tomorrow's Thursday. We'll probably do a mailbag on Friday instead of Thursday. That's how we'll do it. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.